Yeah. Good morning or good afternoon to who is from China, joining from China. My name is Alejandro. I'm the knowledge coordinator of the EU SME Centre in Beijing. Organizing this webinar to introduce the report that we have recently completed at food supplies and in China. This is a report in an area on which the EU SME Center has really focused on, but at the same sector which is growing at impressive speed, and it is very common now for Chinese, especially in big cities, to have a pet and to, of course, spend money on these pets. There are also a lot of foreign brands on the market, but I have to say that there are also many of them are European. So this is why we decided to report and to make to increase awareness on the opportunities as well as the challenges. Next slide, please. Yeah, we are just going to have we have the main author of this report, Orion from China Council, and she will introduce this report right after the presentation. We are also a Q&A, a short Q&A session. Next. And before starting, I would like to spend a couple of minutes on the EU SME Center. For those of you who don't know us, the SME Center is a project funded by the European Commission since 2010, and it is to help European companies to export to China, or to get ready to work with China. We are currently in a third phase, and which till March 2022, and then going to be a fourth phase after it. We are implemented by a consortium of chambers of commerce and business council organizations in China. You see them on the bottom. China Britain Business Council, CBBC, is one of them. See, I think the very first phase of the project. We partner up with organizations, government, business, and we have a physical office here, which is where I am. Slide, please. We have four main types of a knowledge center through which we publish reports, guidelines, like the report we are going today. We have an advice center, like a sort of help desk where a team of experts reply to questions you might have, different business aspects with China. Training center, like we do training workshops and so on, and an ad from through which we try to disseminate new on upcoming policy for comments and so on. Slide, please. Again, yeah, of what's coming next. We're going to have next week. We're going to have the of the year, which is about marketing automation. Then we're going to have a lot of events in January. So the food and drink sector, and relating to geographical indication, but also retail and then compliance in retail. So make sure to follow us. The link here, the report is free. You just need to register to our web, but then after you register, you can download the report. These other links to the the help desk that we also have database of use and also self-diagnosis to help you try your knowledge, your readiness doing pieces with China. Next slide, please. I'm to have a Q&A session at the end, but of course, I try to submit all at any time because we will probably on those who. Next slide, please. Now I think we can move into presentation. So as I mentioned, it's a have Goran today again. It's have already taken part in. So Goran is the food and drink sector within CBBC. She provides her team business support to UK companies, and she works closely with government trade associations to deliver missions and local showcasing events. Before joining CBBC, and worked for many years as a consultant in industry in Shanghai and Beijing, where she developed her expertise in primary market research, company due diligence, competition analysis, and so on. Is an excellent researcher, excellent writer, excellent speaker. We enjoy working together with, and it's my pleasure to be here today again. So Goran, yours, and thank you again for today.
Thank you, Alessio. Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me share my screen, then we'll start my presentation. So hopefully this is a very comprehensive report. So I do strongly encourage you to go to EU SME Centre's website and download the full version. So for today, we're going to go through the report, each of the sections briefly, and hopefully we can cover the questions you may have about exporting pet food and pet supplies and services to China. But if you do still have any other questions, do ask questions in the Q&A session and do download a full report. So first, let's have an overview of the pet market basically in China. This is a very much a booming market, especially so after or during, I think we're still during COVID and until now. So as of last year, 2020, the market size of pet food, pet supplies and medicines in China reached 206.5 billion RMB. That's around 27.5 billion euro. And this market has been growing from 2010 to 2020. In this 10 years, about 30% annually. So it's a fast growing market and there's still a big potential. And in terms of numbers of pets, in this report, we're going to focus mainly on cats and dogs, as these are the major pets in China and will be most relevant to USME companies. So in 2020, there were altogether 100 million cats and dogs in China. So this is can you imagine this 100 million just cats and dogs? This is probably bigger than 95% of the population in the world, of the countries, 95% of the countries in the world. And when we're looking at cats and dogs, what's their split? So generally speaking, there are still more dogs in China than cats, but the percentage of cats is growing. So as of last year, 2020, there was around 52.2% dogs and 48.6% cats. So dogs are slightly more, but the percentage of cats is catching up. And there's many reasons contributing to this, and we'll cover some of the reasons in the coming slides. And if we look at the general market of pet food, supplies and medicines and services, what is the split? So basically food is still the absolutely majority of the market. So we're talking about staple food and treats. These two sectors together take up more than 50% of pet market in China. After that, we have around 14% market occupied by pet supplies. And there's a big chunk of market occupied by pet services, including clinical services, medicines, and other services, including bathing and grooming and healthcare and boarding services. So when we're looking at the demographics, who are the consumers? Who are the people keeping cats in China? And what's their profile looking like? So first, in terms of age, in terms of generation, we have 37% of pet owners that they were born in the 1990s. So this is pretty much the Generation Z, Gen Z people. And we have an equally large amount, around 36% of pet owners who were born between 1980 and 1990. So these are the millennials, basically. So the largest consumer group for pets in China will be the Gen Z and the millennium, people in their 20, 30s. And in terms of education, so we see the largest percentage of pet owners have bachelor's degree. So they're generally well educated. And what about in terms of income? So we have the majority, 48%, so almost 50% of pet owners who make around 4,000 to around 10,000 monthly. So this is, I would say, like middle to high income, and based judging from the number, they are most likely city dwellers living in the first or second or third tier cities in China. And what about genders? So we see that there are slightly more female pet owners than male male pet owners. So 52% of females there are buying pet food, stable food, and 56 are females are buying pet treats. And compare with males, 54% of medical and healthcare services buyers are female, and around 50-50 consumers for bathing and groom services are from both genders. So there's a roughly equal division of genders, but slightly you will see more female consumers. So here we can see a chart. This indicates the types of dogs that are mostly kept in China. So I don't own any dogs, so I'm not 100% familiar with all these names. But then the trend we can observe is that the size of pets, especially dogs, is getting smaller and smaller, because in cities, the cities are getting overcrowded, and then the Chinese government or the city governments are coming up with more and more strict regulations regarding keeping large-sized dogs in China, because they're well, every month we see cases of unleashed dogs biting passengers, right? So we see in general the trend of keeping dogs is that we see more and more smaller sized dogs. And in cities, a lot of the younger consumers especially are treating their pets as their families and friends, not just as animals, compared to maybe decades ago, where pets or dogs in China are generally kept to just safeguard homes. But in today, you will see these pets are really treated as animals and are expected to provide emotional values to the pet owners. Some of the drivers here for a growing pet market in China. So the first, of course, most important one is that the disposable income in China is rising. So people are younger, people are having more and more disposable income to spend on things that will please them. Pet is especially one of them. And another very important factor is the changing household composition. So the household units in China are becoming smaller and smaller. Like in my grandparents' generation, well, my grandpa had 8 brothers and sisters, where, well, in my mom's generation, she has 3, and I'm the single child. So you can see the trend of family units is that we're living more independently. We're having a smaller and smaller household structure. That kind of drives a lot of people to seek companionship from animals. A lot of them are choosing pets. And another driver is that the younger consumers are having a stronger willingness to spend more on their pets. So, for example, in 2017, an annual average pet-related expenditure is around 4,348. That's around 580 euro per person. Where you see 2 years later, in 2019, that figure has risen to 741 euro. And that figure is expected to reach 880 euro in 2020. So that the willingness to spend on their pets is growing every year. So some of the regulations of having pets in China, one of them, the most prominent one, is the Animal Epidemic Prevention Law. That is, the law is from a human perspective to prevent pets or animals from passing epidemic diseases to the society. So that law has been just amended this year in May. There has been some additional clauses in the law to enforce people to have a license to keep pet and to take their pets for vaccination, and to always have the dogs on a leash. So that is part of the law now. That is making it a little bit more difficult to keep dogs in cities in China. So that's probably also one of the reasons why you see there's more people willing to have cats instead of dogs. So now we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into one of the three sectors: pet food, pet supplies, and pet services. Some of the definitions we have in the report for pet food. So in pet food, here we have three sectors. So we have the formula feeds for pets. This is basically the staple food that the pets need to consume every day. And we have the additive premix feeds for pets, especially for healthcare purposes. And we have other pet foods, especially like treats or award that you give to your cats and dogs when they're performing well. So when we look at the three different sectors, the staple food and treats and healthcare products, we will see staple food is absolutely the major part. It's the major food that pet owners consume in China. So the staple food market in 2020, so last year, was around 74.1 billion RMB. And when you look at treats, that's half of the staple food size. That's about this is about 36.8 billion. And pets healthcare food products takes relatively a very small part, 2.1 billion RMB in 2020. But this also indicates that there's a big room for growth in the future. And when we look at pet supplies, so in this report or this webinar, we're going to focus on pet cleaning, pet daily necessities, pet clothing, and pet toys. Overall, the pet supplies market in China was around 28.1 billion. That's around 3.7 billion euro in 2020. And this was a 19% growth compared to 2019. And also when we look at the four different categories, so in pet services, we have clinic services, bathing and grooming services, so we have pet training and pet boarding services. So we'll see the cleaning services, clinic services, it's absolutely demanding product category. So this market in 2020 was around 33.5 billion RMB. And all the other sectors compared to clinic services will be relatively small, especially training sector is still in its infant phases. So when we look at the pet market, as we said earlier in the beginning slide, the major consumers are the millennials and the Gen Zs, people in their 20s and 30s, who are having this consuming power and willingness to spend on their pet. Now, how do we reach these younger generation, the younger consumers in China? We know that they are very much active on social media platforms. The platforms like WeChat, Weibo, and Douyin are the main information channels for them to know about different products and brands. And the younger consumers compared to the older generations also spend quite a significant time on watching live streaming, which is also a booming industry in China. And various social platforms, including Douyin, Kuaishou, and Taobao, and some of the e-commerce platforms provide 24/7 nonstop live streaming for you to watch, and everything could be sold through live streaming. Everything from from insurance to cars to snacks to personal care and pet care products can all be bought and sold from live streaming sessions. And when we look at different drivers of purchasing, making purchasing decisions, what are the purchasing decisions behind these products? So when we look at dry pet food, a report says in 2019, the major driver for consumers to buy a particular dry pet food is the nutritional content. And following that, it's the ingredients and it's the word of mouth. So that means when consumers are considering buying pet food, they're still considering, they very much value the nutritional value and the ingredients. So what's in their food, whether this is good for their pets. And similarly, we can take a look at the purchasing decision behind the healthcare food for pets and pets treats. For healthcare food, ingredients is the major driver behind. And for pet treats, people do value functionality, whether there's different functions for this treat, what can this treat do to their dogs and cats. And similar purchasing drivers can be found for pet supplies. For example, if we take a look at pet gels and conditioners, 66% of consumers said that they would really look at product effectiveness. After that, they will look at the mildness of the ingredients, whether there's anything that's sensitive to their pets that can hurt their pets in any way. So these are the key factors that concerning the consumers. And when we look at pet toys, for example, Chinese consumer really value safety of the material and product function. And when we look at collars and leads, the consumers do really look at the product function and the durability, and also the materials used to produce these collars and leads. And moving on to pet services. So the key factors affecting purchasing decisions behind clinic services, for example, is the medical technology and vet quality. Whether this clinic is equipped really with professional doctors, vets, and professional technologies, and whether this is close to home. Also, that's a very important factor. And when they look at bathing and grooming services, they look at distance. So convenience is the key. Whether the shop or the clinic is close to their home, this is the most important factor. After that, then they consider how professional the service is and whether the environment is good, whether this place is clean. And when they are thinking to purchase a pet training service, a lot of the consumers, so the reason why they purchased this service is that they couldn't train their pets themselves successfully at home, that they need some professional help, or probably they don't have time to do that. So they will also seek outside help. And when they're considering pet boarding services, for example, then they consider the cleanness and comfort of the environment, whether this is clean, this is a safe place for their pets. And then they also consider whether their pets will be kept in a cage. So to summarize what we have just looked at, all these charts, basically the quality of either the products, the food, or the products or the service they purchase is the key. So quality can come in many different ways. This can be the ingredient of the food, or the ingredient of the shampoo, or the material that the brand uses to produce the color or the lead, or the environment, the comfort of a pet service place, or the professionalism of a clinic. All these could be a very much an advantage from international brands, as a lot of the Chinese consumers still believe that imported products or services do have a superior quality compared to local made products. Now let's look at some of the market entry requirements for pet food and supplies and services. For pet food, first of all, the most important factor is the market access. This is the same for pet food. This is also the same for human consumed food. Market access is the first thing that you need to look at if you think of exporting anything, food and drink related to China. So currently 19 countries and regions have market access of pet food to China. These countries are the Netherlands, France, Belgium, Germany, Denmark, Spain, Czechia, Italy, Austria, Thailand, the Philippines, US, Brazil, Argentina, New Zealand, and Australia. So you will see here New Zealand is marked in red. This is because New Zealand is the only country that has a full market access on pet food to China. That means if you're a pet owner from New Zealand, you're automatically on the list of exporting pet food to China. You don't need to be registered. You don't need to apply for any market access allowance. Anything is automatic. But if you're from all the other 18 countries, that means these countries only enjoy a partial market access on pet food to China. What does this mean? This means that all the ingredients in the pet food exported to China from these countries need to be on a white list already. For example, lamb from Italy has no market access to China. That means Italy cannot export any lamb to China. Therefore, if an Italian pet food brand, the products contain any lamb ingredient, the pet food product cannot be exported to China either. So the brand owner needs to check whether all the ingredients in his products has market access before he can consider exporting. And outside the 19 countries, all the other countries outside these 19 countries have basically no pet food market access to China. After looking at the market access issue, we also need to take a look at the GB standard. GB in China means a national standard. So the national standard or the GB standard governing pet food in China is GB 13078. So it's called the hygienical standard for feeds. This basically outlines all the quality and inspection requirements for pet food that's ever sold in China. So for imported pet food, the brand owner also needs to make sure that everything about food, the ingredients, the standards, everything meet with the Chinese standards. So market entry requirements for pet supplies. Pet supplies in China is a relatively emerging or new sector. So there is no specific regulations regarding pet supplies. Other than the brand owners need to comply with the inspection regulations at the customs. There is basically no requirement for entry. And pet services. So pet services is really not one of the industries on a prohibited list or a blacklist to be introduced to China. That means any pet service provider from overseas or outside China can practice in China as well. And there are three different ways basically for you to provide your service to the Chinese market. The first way is to set up your own WFOE, which is a wholly foreign-owned enterprise, to set up your own company in China to practice, to set up a clinic or set up a bath, a pet hotel, or anything you would like to do from your own company in China. Or you can set up a representative office in China, but a representative office or a RO for short cannot transfer any money outside of China or cannot receive any revenue. Basically, a representative office cannot be involved in any business operation. So that's the drawback for setting up only a representative office. So other than involving in the market through a WFOE or a RO, you can also partner with the existing Chinese pet service supplier and to form a joint venture. So these are some of the ways if you want to start introducing your service to China. Okay, now let's move on to distribution. So if you want to distribute or introduce your brand or your service to China, what should you do? What are the major channels that you can already use? So for pet food, let's see some of the preferred purchasing channels. These are the channels that people choose to go on when they're looking for different products, right? So this is back in 2019. So we see that 50%, more than 53%, more than 50% of the consumers would choose to go on e-commerce. As we know, China is the world leader in e-commerce. So they will search for pet food products from online, basically. And 21% of them said they would choose a pet store. And then there's 14% that said they would go basically to a supermarket. So e-commerce is a major channel for you if you would like to export a pet food to China. This is, I think, the priority, the first channel that you should consider. And when we look at pet supplies, what are the channels there? Also, more than 50%, 58% of consumers would choose to go on e-commerce platforms to just directly make an order there without having to go out of their home. And 21% said they will visit pet store, and 10% of consumers bought their pet supplies from clinics they visit. 8% would go to supermarkets. So when we look at the pet services sector, for example, let's take a look at the pet clinics sector. What can we see? So we see that the market is quite scattered. The concentration level is really quite low. We see a lot of SMEs in China. So below chart, you can see this is a registered capital of companies offering pet clinic services. We see a vast majority of them, 55% of them, have a registration capital less than 5 million RMB. So that's around 666,000 euro. So these are smaller size companies. And when we take a look at the pet bathing and grooming services, we can see that so where do people go if they want to use grooming and bathing services? 44% of them said they will go to pet stores, and 9% of them said they will go to pet hospitals. And around half of the consumers, 45% of them said they had never purchased the service before. Again, I think this indicates that there's still a lot of consumer education to be done, and there's still a big room for growth for service providers in the grooming and bathing services. And know your enemy before you enter the market. What are the key competitors in China? If we take a look at the pet food sector, for example, so this is a very scattered market. The concentration level is quite low. So we see 10% or 11.4% of the market is occupied by Mars, which is a large international brand. And all the other companies are occupying quite small percentages of the market, around 2-3% or 1 or 2%. And a lot of them are Chinese domestic brands. Around 68.9%, around 70% of the market is occupied by no names. Not no names, I mean just names that are not big enough to be listed separately. So this market, it's I don't think it's a mature market yet, and then a lot of brands do not have their brand awareness, and people just there's a lot to choose from. And compared with the pet food market, the pet supply market is even more diverse. You see a lot of smaller names or no-name products in the market. And a lot of the brands, companies lack brand awareness. And some of the brands here are a little bit more known compared to the other brands. So we have Pet Kit, Hu Pet, and Pindan. So these are the relatively major brands in market for pet supplies. But when we look at pet services, this is a whole different story. For example, if we look at pet clinics, all these clinics that you can see in the pet clinic market in China will be already bought and owned by these two groups, Ruipeng and Ruipai. So they might carry different brand names, but then a lot of them belong to these groups. And regarding pet bathing and grooming and training and boarding markets, these are still very small sectors and they remain fragmented and diverse. There are no dominant providers nationwide. So what are some of the trends, the recent and future developments that we have observed in the market? First, let's take a look at the pet food market. We know that over the years, we can see that Chinese OEM manufacturers or factories are not satisfied with producing for other brands. They want to become brands and they want to sell their products. They want to own their own channels. And this is a major trend that we see. A lot of the large OEM factories are coming up with their own brands and they're doing a lot of brand building work. And we also see as there's a growing group of cat owners, there's a growing demand for premium cat food. As cat owners somehow treats their cat food more seriously than dog owners, for example. It's probably also because the nature of cats, they're probably more delicate and sensitive towards food, right? So cat owners demand more premium food and they don't care spending a little bit more money on the quality of the food, right? And we can also see for the pet treats market, there's a growth continuously over the years. And of course, last but not least, e-commerce. So a booming online market. More and more pet brands are realizing that it is very important to build their brand awareness amongst younger consumers through social platforms, through e-commerce. So a lot of them are using e-commerce as a major sales and brand seeding channel. A lot of the younger consumers are buying everything their pets need from online. So what are some of the trends in pet supply sector? We see that pet owners are generally more and more interested in smart pet supplies than they were willing to spend more money on this. This is probably also because the pet owners are becoming younger and they're interested in the newest technology, electronic gadgets, and they're willing to know what these can do to their life and their pets. And we observe that luxury brands, a lot of luxury brands are coming up with their pet accessories, and consumers are willing to buy luxury brands or products for their pets. And this is not a joke. When they're buying LV bags for themselves, they're probably also buying a mini LV bag for their dog, right? So young people are getting more and more courageous on spending, and they don't mind spending on brand names on their pets. And last but not least, we see a potential of sales growth for dog leads, and this is because the growing more and more strict regulation in cities in China that the government is enforcing everybody to who has dogs to have dog leads. That potentially, if someone walks his or her dog without a lead, without a leash, there could be a penalty or a fine. And some of the trends for pet services sector, we see a shift to more standardized and centralized chains clinics and pet service providers are, like we said in previous slides, are more and more owned and run by groups. So the pet services sector, at least the clinic sector, is becoming more and more regulated and centralized. And we also see an expansion of online pet services platforms. So what does this mean? That there is a booming sector of online pet clinics that if you, for example, if I have some problem with my dog, probably I don't need to go to a clinic. I can ask a vet from my phone and get an answer instantly. So this is also driven by the younger consumer and the fact that e-commerce and online platforms are so prosperous in China. And we see more money going to the pet sector, private sector funding. This is also because the capital or the investors see that there's a potential for growth for pets, and then we see more money going into these sectors. So what would be some of the opportunities and challenges for EU SME companies entering the pet markets in China? So first of all, let's see, this is probably a topic that you have heard many times in different occasions, that there is a consumption upgrade trend in China. With Chinese people becoming more and more wealthy, they're willing to spend more money on quality products. A lot of times this means imported products, because there's still a general belief that quality of imported food and drinks and products are better than local made products, and this includes pet food and supplies. So we see for the data of Tmall and Taobao sales of dog and cat food by company tab, for example, we see that 72% of these products are local made. 28% will be imported products. But this is quite interesting, because for cats, this is totally the opposite. Cat owners buying 24% only pet owners are buying domestic products, while 76% of the cat owners choose to buy imported cat food for their cats. Again, this is probably because for cats, it's more important what the cats eat compared to dogs. They probably are more vulnerable to diseases and other problems if the pet owner or the cat owner chooses the wrong or low quality products. But just to the contracts of the previous slide that we have just mentioned, that there is a consumption upgrade in China, we also observe a guochao or Chinese brands rise in the recent years, especially during since COVID, basically, when there's less chance for people to travel abroad, for people to have knowledge about different imported brands. Then a lot of the Chinese brands take the advantage to build their brand among younger consumers. So we see in the chart below, the gray part indicates Chinese brands. So for staple pet food, for example, 26% of the consumers would choose to buy local. And the yellow part would mean imported or international brands. So 32% of staple pet food consumers will choose to buy imported pet food. And 42% said, I don't care, basically, I don't really worry about the brand, where this brand is from, as long as it does its work. So so this is especially obvious in pet toys, where almost 70% of the consumers said, I don't really care where this brand comes from. But in other sectors, including, for example, healthcare products and shower gels and pet treats, this is still a very important factor. More than 35% of consumers will still choose imported brands or products over Chinese brands. This is probably a concern over safety and product quality. So this is where I think EU SME brands or international brands have advantage in China, that there is still this perception when it comes to food safety or product safety or quality. Sometimes it does matter that people do want to buy imported goods. So this slide shows some of the emerging product categories we have observed over the year. This is popular pet bathing and beauty categories on JD.com, one of the two major e-commerce platforms in China. So some of the rising or emerging product categories for pets include pet shower gel, beauty tools, electronic beauty devices, healthcare products. So this indicates that consumers are no longer satisfied with just feeding their pets and make sure their pets stay alive. They want to pay more attention and spend more time on dressing up their pets and making them feel better, making themselves feel better. So they're spending more money on these accessories or products that are not necessary, especially for the survival of the pets, but for the well-being of the pets. So if you're a supplier or exporter in these areas, there is a lot of market potential for you. I think that just pretty much is the end of my presentation. This is just some slides about us, about CBBC. We are a non-for-profit membership organization. We provide advice, analysis, access to Chinese market. We have 4 offices in China now. We have 8 different sector teams and over 500 members. We work with organizations like the EU SME Centre to help UK companies and European companies in general enter the Chinese market. Some of the things we do. And if you do like to contact us, this is my contact detail. I believe you can probably also download this slide later. So don't worry if you don't, you can't keep a note now. So that's the end of my presentation. I will just stop sharing my screen. If you have any questions, feel free to join the Q&A session.
Thank you, Guran, for the excellent presentation. And indeed, if there are questions, you can contact Guran directly, or of course, the SME Center, the EU SME Center will also be very happy to introduce, to make the connection. Again, I would invite you, this was just a very short overview of the report. The report itself is very comprehensive. There are a lot of details, and I will really invite you to download it. I have one comment and one question for you. Of course, if there are other questions from the audience, please write them down in the chat, in the Q&A box. So we were talking about brands getting involved into this area, and the power of e-commerce, the importance. More than 50% of products sold are sold on e-commerce. Just want to share with you something I find pretty funny. I'll just show you on my phone, which I think it's no, maybe
Yeah, I can see it.
this is like a Ralph Lauren polo for dogs, and you can also see oh, my screen, the filters don't make my life easier, but anyway, I just wanted to show things like these things with you. You know, like also the level of detail. You know, you see here the brand logo, and it's like it costs 590 renminbi, and I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, 590 renminbi, which it's a pretty important amount for a dog polo. So yeah, how do you see this? I mean,
I think this is interesting. I mean, obviously the stock probably lives a better life than I do, right? So yeah, I mean, this is echoes the content in the presentation. I mean, luxurious brands are coming up with luxurious pet accessories, and Chinese consumers are buying them. This indicates that the consumers in China are really treating their pets as families. They will buy the same, quality products, they buy for themselves for their pets. So they don't want to, nothing cheap, nothing low quality.
Thank you, Ran. We got one question in the chat. Do you want me to read it for you, or you can see it? Maybe I'll just read it. So for the audience, hi, very good research. And at the beginning, you listed Instagram, but isn't Instagram blocked in China?
Yes, as you also know, Alessio, so this is very much blocked in China. We have to use a VPN to access Instagram, but VPN in theory is illegal in China to use. So in China, as you probably know, we have our own version of Instagram and of YouTube. We have our own version of Amazon. So everything, while we cannot access these platforms, we have a prosperity of social media and e-commerce within ourselves, and that's booming. So to answer your question, no, we cannot access Instagram in China.
Okay, thank you. And if there are other questions in the meantime, I will ask one myself. You mentioned a lot of brand awareness, brand awareness activities that European SMEs, European brands should do. So if you operate in this sector, if you are a known pet food or supply brand in Europe, what kind of activities you can do in China to increase your brand awareness? Especially because we saw the market is very fragmented, right? There is not really a dominant player, but there are so many players. So what can you do to enter this market?
Yeah, so I think this is a very competitive market for sure, and the brand, once you hopefully have importers to work with, you do really need to spend to create a budget for marketing, for product seeding and marketing campaigns. And I think especially after you design your target audience, which I assume will be the younger consumers or the female group or a particular group that you have. I think the best way of reaching younger consumers is to do seeding on social media, including the Little Red Book, Weibo. So on Little Red Book is one of the major product seeding platforms that you can find loads and loads of posts about different brands, and there's thousands of KOCs active on Little Red Book, and you can access these KOCs and work with them through a marketing company, right? So usually a marketing company will keep a pool of KOCs and KOLs for you to work with, and they all have a different packages targeting different budgets. So I mean, product seeding and campaign and marketing on e-commerce and social platform is quite a mature industry that you can just reach out to a marketing agency that they will come up with solutions.
Right. So I guess this also answered the follow-up question that we've seen in the chat, which reads, so it is not recommended to use Instagram to promote pet food. I think you just mentioned a few names, Xiaohongshu, which is Little Red Book, and many other platforms. I think these are more, would be more recommended. We also, by the way, we have recent, well, a few months ago, we also updated one of our flagship reports about e-commerce, the e-commerce ecosystem in China, where we describe all the advantages and disadvantages of each platform, not only Douyin, Taobao, Jingdong, the most famous one, the most popular one, but also less known platforms like Xiaohongshu, Kaola, or many others. So we describe all the costs to open a stores there, all the commissions, the fees, and so if you're interested in this sector, and you should be if you want to sell pet food or supplies in China, I will also invite you to download our e-commerce report. We still have a few minutes, so maybe if there are no other questions, I will ask you another question, Ran, if you don't mind.
No problem.
So you mentioned during your presentation that there have been a lot of new regulations and new, let's say, a general trend to standardize this area to make it safer. So how how has the Chinese authorities, have the Chinese authorities come up with further policies to promote the pet industry and in general the welfare of pets?
Yeah, so I think the law system, this is an evolving society. I mean, despite the economy size and everything, China is, I still think in a lot of aspects, a developing country. So, for example, in 2018, I think the Ministry of Agriculture has decided, okay, now dogs are considered pets, because before 2018, they were considered well, livestock. And pet food for dog is basically feed, right? Animal feed. So that from official perspective, they acknowledge, okay, dogs are companions, they're not livestock. And this is because this is driven by common perception in the society, of course. And this year also, I think just in October, Chinese government is open for opinions on a new law they want to introduce. It's called the Anti-Cruelty to Animals Law. So before that, there is no law or regulation that's protecting the benefits or well-being of the animals. So all these regulations and laws are from the human perspective, protecting humans from animals. But now China, the government is thinking to introduce a law actually to protect the welfare of animals. So I think that's a very big progress, indicating that the society is evolving. So I think there will be more, pet or pet owner friendly regulations coming up in the future that would definitely be a driving factor for the pet food or pet supplies or services industries, I hope.
Indeed. Thank you, Goran. If I may add something, something very meaningful, I think, is I'm not sure if it's everywhere across China or just Beijing, but I know that at least in Beijing, if you are over 60 years old and you have a pet as a companion, you will get your vaccines, and I mean the pet will get the vaccines and a lot of other services, or the dog ID card for free. While if you are, this is to incentivize to help older people not to be alone, to spend with the time with a companion. So I think definitely China is going in a direction of more safeguarding of let's say, or recognizing the status of pets and safeguarding their health, and at the same time standardizing the sector. So if there are no other questions, maybe I would invite Xianhui please to display the slides. Yes, we have, as usual, we would invite you to, we would really appreciate if you could spend 1 minute of your time to scan this QR code and let us know your feedback, or also if you have other ideas on any other topics that you would like us to cover in future webinars. Next slide, please. These are we will, by the way, we will upload the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, so you can also rewatch it later. You can download the slides, you can share it to other colleagues. These are contact details. You can reach out to us anytime, to Goran, to CBBC, or yeah, for anything, we are here to help you. If you would like to know more, just get in touch with us anytime. So thank you all for your attention. Thank you, Goran, for the excellent presentation, and of course for the work on the report, which again I invite you all again to download. And yeah, have a great evening or day if you're in Europe. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.